I think that the part of casting is like, this movie, in case you haven't noticed, there's not that much, CGI or huge action sequences or anything like that. The whole movie sort of lives and dies on the actors' faces. Those are the landscapes that this movie is being told on.
Director Celine Song. Hello, can you hear us? I think that I can speak for everyone here about what we're feeling. This is an extraordinary, beautiful film. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And I want to thank A24 because they always have the best movies. Celine, how much of your own life story is in the story of Nora? I mean, we're born in Korea. Can you take us through how much of it is your own story?
Well, I think I talk about it as like an inspired by, or I sometimes talk about it as like an adaptation of something that happened in my life, or the kind of feelings I've had in my life. Because I think the initial impulse for the movie really was the opening scene, and then also the scene near the end there in the bar, where I found myself sitting there with my childhood sweetheart who flew in, after a 13-hour flight, and I spoke my native language with him, and then my white American husband who only speaks English. And I think that I was translating between these two guys, not just in language but in culture, and I think that there was something about it that I felt like was really special about that, because just by being myself, I was collapsing time and space to sort of like have two parts of my life that feel like they couldn't possibly speak to each other, really try hard to speak to each other. And I think really that moment, I think, inspired the whole film. And I think from there, the rest of it was very much about thinking about like what matters about my subjective experience in turning it into a movie and characters that sort of can stand on its own. I think that was always my relationship to the autobiographical part of it. Yeah.
So in that moment, did you think this could really make a good film?
I think that I really put it in a maybe pile because it felt special to me personally, and I think that's why I talk about the movie as a personal movie, because to me it felt like personally the stakes felt very high personally, but it was a maybe pile because it was also about three really specific people just in a bar talking. And I think that there was a part of it where I was like, I don't know if there is an audience for that. I don't know if there's an audience that wants to watch ordinary people feeling something that is extraordinary and kind of hard to put into words, right? So, and I think the thing that I ultimately felt was like, what really got me to actually write it is that I shared the story with some of my friends, and I was so amazed at how many of them had stories of their own and how much they felt connected to the story. And I feel like every time I told the story to my friends, I ended up becoming deeper friends with them. So I was like, well, there must be something here then. So it kind of like, moved from the maybe pile to, okay, well, let me try to do it.
So you wrote a script on spec. You'd never directed a movie before. And then what happened?
Well, I think that I think really that's the best thing you can think about when it comes to script. It is really a sales document or some kind of a pitch document for like what I think the movie should be or what I think that it could be. And I think that part of it is that I was just was hoping that they would let me direct it. And I think that I had a pretty good pitch for it because I'm bilingual, the script is bilingual, and the movie has to be bilingual. And also, it's a personal story. So I can tell you what a scene has to feel like. I know I can tell you some of those things about, I feel so connected to the story because some of these things happened to me. So I think those are some of the pitches that got me to a place where they agreed that I should be the director for the movie.
Well, I'm very glad they did. It's a very logical pitch, but as we know in Hollywood, they don't always, logical doesn't always win. So you were born in Korea, you immigrated at 12, and so your father was a director. So there are so many elements that you pulled from your own life all throughout.
Yes, I mean, I think that, for example, but I think that really is the relationship to the, like, facts and some of the truth and, like, what actually matters about some of these characters. Because I feel like, well, because I was like, well, does Nora have to be Korean Canadian American like myself? Can she just be Korean American? But my thought was like, actually, she does, because when she's a kid and she immigrates, that there's a part of it where it feels like it's not fully in her control. Like, her parents are immigrating, that's why she's immigrating. But then her character is a kind of a perennial immigrant. That's who she has to be in the movie. She is somebody who leaves, right? She's somebody who moves countries and moves continents and jumps oceans to follow her dreams. So for that to happen, actually, her being twice an immigrant made sense, because then you're like, when she was a grown-up too, she will also move. She will also immigrate to pursue her dreams. Yeah.
And do you still dream in Korean?
I've been told that it's like, I've been told that I do sometimes. But I think it's mostly gibberish.
Have we heard that line before? It is. I mean, it's just such a beautiful film. I mean, it's line after line just feels so genuine. But let's talk a little bit about the concept of Inyon, because that really is the through line for that. How important of a concept was that for you in your own life?
Well, I think that it is a kind of a commonplace concept for anybody who is connected to, of course, Korean culture. But I think that Inyon is also a concept that exists in all cultures that has Eastern philosophy. I know there is a word exactly like Inyon that is Inyon in China, and there's one in India, there's one in Japan. Like, there's so much, it's really more of a concept that exists in Eastern philosophy more than anything. And I think the idea sort of comes from the sort of Eastern or versus the Western concept of destiny. Because in Western sense of destiny something that you try to go get, right? You go find your destiny. You find a person who is your destined person. So there's a lot of that kind of approach to it. But in Eastern philosophy, so much of destiny is about something that comes to you, right? And something that just walks in the door, and it's like, and some people you brush up against them and they're just strangers, and then you never see that person again. But some people you brush up against them and then that you marry that person, right? So I think that's what's so amazing about that concept. But the reason why I wanted to introduce this concept, Inyon, is because the main character, Hae Sung and Nora, their relationship is not actually, it's not possible to put a word to it that we can really identify it in a simple way. You can't really say that they're exes. They're not really exes. They just held hands as children once, right?
Sweetheart.
They were sweethearts. So they're childhood sweethearts, and they were friends, but for friends they haven't spoken in 12 years. So, and also throughout time, in the 24 years, their relationship also shifts, and it changes, and there's no one word that you can really use to describe who they are to each other, which I think is the central mystery of the movie. There's a reason why the first scene, those unseen characters ask, who are these three people to each other, because that's the mystery of the film, So I think that it's really, and the answer I couldn't really imagine without introducing the concept of Inyon, really being able to answer it truthfully, because who they are to each other is that they're Inyon, right? Because Inyon is this idea that there's some connections that endure through time and space, and also it endures through even lifetimes, right? And there's a reason why this person is in your life. It's because they are, because they're your Inyon. So I think that that's why I wanted to introduce the concept to the movie. I thought that was the best way to sort of talk about the mystery of, like, why are these two people over 24 years, why are they still connected? And it doesn't have to mean that they had to be connected in a sort of a obviously romantic way or an obviously one way or the other. It can be this thing that's ineffable, right? That is hard to put into words. Yeah.
it's a beautiful and it's a comforting kind of, it's a, yeah. So thank you. I think all of us will take that away. Talk about casting, because the cast is incredible, and talk about that whole process and finding the perfect characters. And so much of it, obviously you wrote the script, but there's so much of it is relies on their reactions and their expressions. And so, can you take us through that?
Well, I think that the part of casting is like, this movie, in case you haven't noticed, there's not that much, CGI or huge action sequences or anything like that. The whole movie sort of lives and dies on the actors' faces. Those are the landscapes that this movie is being told on. So I think that my first criteria for who these actors have to be, that they have to be great. They have to just be good at it in terms of just craft. There are some sequences in the movie where I just put a camera and I don't move the camera, and the actors are just having to do the whole scene. So I think in those cases, I just need the actors to be just in a very simple, pure way, just like craft-wise, just good. The second thing that I'm looking for is really, because there are a lot of great actors, but the reason why I knew that these three were the right actors for the roles is because they were what I call soul matched to the characters. And I think what I was looking for really for, especially Hae Sung and Nora, is that I was looking for a duality. I was looking for somebody who at one moment can look like aloof adult, who is very serious, who is very, who loves their work and is focused and everything. And then when they smile, both Greta and Theo suddenly look like a kid. They suddenly look like 6 years old, and they're very mischievous with each other. And I think that to me was at the heart of what that piece of casting was. And when it came to Arthur, it really was about when we see him in that bar, sitting there next to the two of them. When we cut to him, I think the hope is that we're able to connect to him, and I think that it's we're able to see him as somebody with he inspires empathy. He has empathy and sympathy and connection, as opposed to, if he was a different, it's very easy for us to cut to him and for us to just feel nothing but hatred, right? Or be nothing but a distance. But I think that what I really was really important, what I was looking for in Arthur, is that, and the reason why I wanted it to be John is because just with his eyes, he just needs to communicate a deep well of care and empathy, and a way to connect with the audience in a way where you're just man,
Yeah, wow.
Right
someone
too,
next to me said, man, she's got an understanding husband.
Yeah.
And to talk about casting them when they were young, because I think that there's an interesting story there that I've read.
Yeah, so the kids, I actually did do a chemistry read, because their chemistry has to be so effortless and correct, because that's really when their Nora and Hae Sung's relationship was at its fullest in this lifetime. Maybe in another lifetime it would have been full with their adults, but really at the fullest in this lifetime is when they're as kids. So to me, I wanted to do a chemistry with the actors. So I had found the little Nora, who is so amazing and so talented, and then I was looking for the boy. So, and I had 3 boys come in to do a chemistry with them. And because there was not enough text in the movie, all they really say is bye, So I couldn't really ask them to do a scene or something. So something that I did is I asked them to do something that is even hard for adults to do, which is to ad-lib a scene. And what I asked the boys to do is to ask their friend, the little Nora, to stay in Korea. To say that I don't want you to leave, I want you to stay here and be my friend. And the boy that I ended up casting, Seungmin, it was such a convincing piece of acting and such a good piece of ad-lib that he made the little girl cry. And she cried, and she asked me after the boy left, she asked me, does Nora have to leave? Do I have to leave? I don't want to leave. It's too sad. And I was like, it's okay. Nora has to leave, but you don't have to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so many incredible moments, and you've described this as a triptych of three goodbyes. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's a movie that's structurally about the three goodbyes, and there are two goodbyes that don't that are bad goodbyes, and then there's one that's good, and that's what ends the film. So the first two goodbyes are they're bad goodbyes because they don't stick, you know, and they don't do it properly because they're too young. I think a part of it has to do with youth. I think when they're kids and they say goodbye, it doesn't work because they don't really know how to express what this goodbye is. And when they're a little bit older, and when they're young adults that they're trying to see if this long distance thing can work, they hurt each other, right? So I think that those two are sort of goodbyes that sort of like never actually work. And then the final goodbye, the one in the middle of the street in East Village, I think that goodbye is the one that works. And that's why, and it's not only that, it's also they're saying the goodbye that they were owed as children. So when we flash back to that moment in childhood, in that corner where they originally said goodbye, the lighting for that scene, I wanted to be in the dark, because it is as though those kids have been waiting for this goodbye for 24 years, right? And when they do get this goodbye, that's when the movie is able to end. And also Nora is able to say goodbye to that little girl, because I think the movie, I mean, I sometimes talk about the movie as a confirmation of death movie, right? Where it's like a CSI or something, where you lift the sheet and then you're like, oh no, you're right, he is dead, or whatever. And I think it's like, I think that really is what this movie is. Hae Sung flew 13 hours to be in New York to meet Nora as an adult, so that he and Nora can confirm that that little girl is gone, right? So I think only when they're able to say goodbye in that corner 24 years later, this goodbye that they were owed as children, that's when she's able to sort of grieve. And I don't think that Nora knew that she even needed to grieve this girl. I think she's so focused on the her life and her goals.
The Pulitzer, the Tony.
Yeah, exactly. She's so focused on her ambition that I don't think she even knew that that little girl deserved to be grieved. And I think that the gift that Hae Sung gives her in the movie is that he's showing up. He flew 14 hours to be here to be like, I feel like I need to say goodbye to this girl. Would you do it with me? And I think that Nora is able to say yes. And I think from then, I think when she's walking home and crying, I think it's about the possibilities and roads not taken and all that. But I think at the heart of it, she's getting to grieve the little girl that she once, that she once was, and I think that's what the tears are about. And I sometimes talk about it as almost a ritualistic thing. She is really taking a moment to grieve her, and she couldn't do that if she didn't get to say goodbye properly. This goodbye she was owed.
I mean, I have to say, to me, it's just perfect. It's a perfect film. I'm still, processing it, but what is it that it's universal, the story. I think that's what touches so many people. But what do you most want your audience to take away from this?
I think the part of it that is universal is like the way that time and space sort of weighs on all of us. I think it was a movie about aging as well. It's about growing up and change, because every moment we're changing. And I think that there's both the heartbreak in that, but there's also something amazing in that. And I think we can also be happy about the kind of the new too. I think it's both. I think it has to be both. But I think that, sorry, what was the second part? I got lost in the thing. You're saying,
what do you want people to take?
Oh, what do I want people to take away? I really do think that what I've learned is you should take away from the movie what you walked in with. So I think what I mean is it's different what you're going to walk away with depending on how you walked in. And I think that I found this to be true because I've heard every response from every version of the response, and it also changes depending on if you're single or if you're in a long-term relationship. Like I've had a lot of people in long-term relationships come up to me and say, it's like, this movie really made me want to go home and like hug my partner and like tell them that I love them, appreciate them, and I thank them. I've also heard the other side of being like, it's like, I think I gotta break up with my girlfriend. I think I gotta break up with my girlfriend. I don't think she's the one, And of course, when it comes to single people, I've also heard things like, it's like, you know what? I actually think that I'm gonna fly to this country, and then I'm just gonna see what that's about because I've hung up on that person, and I just feel like it is worth checking out what that is. And then, of course, I heard completely the other side, where they were like, you know, this movie really made me get over my ex that I was really hung up on, and now I'm like done. Now I'm done with that. I know that it was the right thing for us. And I think it's like, I don't think that what you should walk away from it is necessarily like one kind of a thing. I think that it is like, hopefully, you're able to walk in with an open heart so that you're able to let it under your skin so that it can touch you in some way. But that's all I can really ask for. I think you can walk away feeling any kind of way about the choices that these particular characters made about their lives, and what kind of choice that you want to make, or like what kind of life and love that you're interested in pursuing, you know.
Celine, I know we're out of time, but thank you so much. And I want to say it opens in theaters in the Washington area June 9th, and I hope all of you start spreading the word and telling everybody. Post it on your social media, get the word out. We'll be looking for you during the awards season. We know we'll be seeing you. And I also know you're going to be doing another film with A24, which I don't think you're going to talk to us about, but we'll look for that too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.